Each of us has the right to a free, independent life, and whoever prevents all this is the greatest and most insensitive evil. Yes, all peoples have the right to choose their own life, but not to the detriment of others. We all should live intelligently and beautifully, then we will all have enough happiness and joy of life. Unfortunately, there are people who consider the struggle for the freedom of my people and every single Chechen as terrorism. But in fact, terrorists are those who occupy a foreign country and dictate their own terms. But by no means the fighters who, by all available means, conduct sabotage and combat operations in the enemy's territory. Unfortunately, we are accustomed not only to insult and beat each other for the fact that everyone has his own view of life. No, it is not enough for us, we kill each other for nothing. After all, each of us loves someone, wants a happy life. But why don't we think before we do bad things to others? Let's put ourselves in their shoes, and how we would feel in that undeserved situation. Intelligence is the power of life, and wisdom is the source of a right, happy life. Don't people deserve a better life if they are human beings? Any of us is mistaken in something, a human being deserves fear and hatred. But no one has the right to decide for others how they should live. Neither father nor mother has the right to take away, even from their own children, what is given to them by the will of the Almighty, the world of any of us. Yes, it is reasonable and wise when the essence and infirmities of wrong actions are properly explained to us. After all, if you are an intelligent person, you will be able to explain yourself correctly and find a way out of any situation. And to humiliate, beat someone, or it was not possible only a lowlife. Being born in the image of a man does not mean that you are a man. There should be only one thing in a man, to be a man. Most importantly, we must not dispel racial animosity. There is no such thing as a bad nation. The future is built by the present, learning lessons from the past. We cannot forget the good and the bad, no matter how we cover up our sins, history will say its word. Have nations suffered little from leaders, rulers of ignorant people who always put their own illusions and riches above the values of mankind? You cannot hate a person on the basis of nationality. Every nation has its own faults and zest for beauty. We will win evil and injustices by love and respect for each other together as befits intelligent beings. The most valuable thing in people is their state of mind, and each of us must proudly defend the fortress of our free soul in any worst situations of life. Hurry to do good, for only it has a happy ending. Everything else gets lost somewhere, extinguished, only the freedom of the magical soul, your proud self, remains. But no matter how much we want to, life takes its course, murderers will always remain murderers. Genocides of all kinds leave a bloody and brutal trail that can never be forgotten. On February 23, 1944, the Chechen and Ingush peoples were treacherously exiled to Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan and Siberia. Even before dawn, all the villages and towns of Chechnya were surrounded by the 120,000-strong army of the USSR NKVD, with several armed soldiers standing outside each Chechen house. No belongings were allowed to be taken. People did not understand what was happening, but the fate of every Chechen and every Ingush had already been predetermined by Stalin and his bloodthirsty dogs. The Chechen and Ingush peoples were falsely accused of betrayal and inhumanely taken from their homelands in freight cars. What was particularly cynical and savage was that, under the pretext of training exercises, NKVD troops began to gather in Chechnya 2 months before the deportation. And every Chechen family fed and helped the Russian soldiers in any way it could. And they repaid them with bayonets. 2/3 of the then population of Chechnya and Ingushetia perished during the deportation and in places of forced settlement in Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan. While Chechen and Ingush youth were fighting at the front, defending their homeland against the German invaders, other invaders with Stalin's name on their lips were sending their parents, brothers and sisters to their deaths, burning them alive in barns, starving them to death in horrible conditions in unheated wagons and hoveled barracks on the steppe. All men, women, children and the elderly were to be expelled. Those who resisted or could not go were killed with particular cruelty. In the village of Kaibok alone, the NKVD troops burned alive in a stable more than 900 people whom they simply did not want to deal with. The rest were sent into exile in freight cars. In cramped conditions so terrible that not only sleeping but even sitting had to take turns, people traveled for weeks without food or warm clothes, dying of cold and hunger by the thousands. Many ate clover and meager grasses if they could find them during the short stops in the steppe. Swollen from hunger and weeds, people died as families. The corpses of dead people were simply thrown out of the wagons by the military. The exiles did not know why and where they were being taken, but many still believed that they could return home. There was no guilt for these people. During the first years in the places of forced settlement, few of the locals sought to help the half-dead and extremely destitute settlers. The local population, trained by propaganda, was hostile to the guests. They expected the arrival of traitors, enemies of the people and cannibal savages. The same was said about the locals and Chechens. But people have brains to think and draw their own conclusions, and hearts to empathize with the suffering and joy of others. Lucky are the families who were brought to the villages by kind people who helped the unfortunate exiles in their desperate situation. May Chechnya become free from the shackles of state systems and become a free, independent country. May justice prevail throughout the world. One Night That Changed Everything. The author of One Night That Changed Everything skillfully navigates the subtle layers of human emotion and spirituality. This compelling novel explores the transformation of a young Muslim girl with insightful themes of love, trauma, and redemption. The author's narrative skill is evident in his appeal to social norms, urging the reader to reflect on personal values and the consequences of violating moral boundaries. A unique blend of cultural wisdom and a deep understanding of spirituality gives the story depth, creating an engaging and powerful reading experience. In One Night That Changed Everything, the author doesn't just tell a compelling story, he teaches valuable life lessons, instilling hope even in the face of darkness. This novel demonstrates the author's ability to create a narrative that goes beyond fiction and leaves a lasting impression on readers looking for a deep and resonant story. It's all written in the books below. The website link is at the bottom of this clip. From Hell to Paradise. The book From Hell to Paradise is an account of the terrible genocides of the USSR and Russia against the Chechen people from February 1944 to the present day. In this book, the author describes how the Russians burned Chechen children, women and old people alive in barns, shot the sick in hospitals, threw innocent people into abysses and drowned them in lakes. In his book, the author describes how Russia killed more than 300,000 Chechen civilians and more than 42,000 children under the age of 12 during the recent Russian-Chechen wars. The topic of Russia's inhumane, brutal war in Ukraine is also touched upon. In this book, the author describes the life of immigrants in the United States. Freedom or death. A few words about the story. The main task of this story is to familiarize the reader with the psychology of my small people, the people of Chechnya. To show that their path to freedom is the path of courageous people who are ready to give their lives for the happiness of their loved ones and the prosperity of their homeland. I also wanted to show why many people in Chechnya took up arms and stood shoulder to shoulder in volunteer units to resist Russian aggression in 1994 to 1996. In this story I told about fighters who took part in fierce battles with Russian federal forces, buying weapons with their own money and the proceeds from the sale of property. This is not a story about emirs glorified by ordinary fighters, but about those very fighters, former teachers and doctors, tractor drivers and market traders, cab drivers and heads of vegetable bazaars. They gave their lives and health to serve the motherland of their own free will, having neither combat training nor weapons. And they won. They defeated one of the strongest armies of the world at that time, thanks to their personal bravery, loyalty to duty and belief that freedom comes only to those who deserve it. May Allah honor them and may people glorify them for centuries to come. And may the memory of their deeds live in the memory of everyone who considers freedom the highest value given to us in life. Breath of Life. Breath of Life is an account of the Russian genocide against the Chechen people. Since the 16th century, Russia has been purposefully destroying the Chechen people by barbaric and inhuman methods. Bloodthirsty Russia has repeatedly committed genocide against the Chechen people during this time. More than 1 million Chechens have been killed. Today, the Kremlin bloodsuckers and murderers continue to destroy the Chechen people. Putin's gangs continue to imprison innocent Chechens on the basis of fabricated evidence. To this day, Chechen civilians remain missing. Chechens in Russia have no rights. They are persecuted and killed everywhere after long periods of brutal torture and violations of all human rights. One Night That Changed Everything. The author of One Night That Changed Everything skillfully navigates the subtle layers of human emotion and spirituality. This compelling novel explores the transformation of a young Muslim girl with insightful themes of love, trauma, and redemption. The author's narrative skill is evident in his appeal to social norms, urging the reader to reflect on personal values and the consequences of violating moral boundaries. A unique blend of cultural wisdom and a deep understanding of spirituality gives the story depth, creating an engaging and powerful reading experience. In One Night That Changed Everything, the author doesn't just tell a compelling story, he teaches valuable life lessons, instilling hope even in the face of darkness. This novel demonstrates the author's ability to create a narrative that goes beyond fiction and leaves a lasting impression on readers looking for a deep and resonant story. The link to the book sale is at the bottom of this clip.